the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 22 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the committee's motion adopted on Friday, February 5th of this year, the committee is meeting to study all aspects of COVID-19 spending and programs. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th of this year, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website so that you are aware the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. I'd like to also remind folks that we're not to take screenshots off the screen in accordance with the House Commons rules. So I would like to welcome the witnesses from across the country. If you could hold your remarks to about 5 minutes, that would be helpful. And then after all witnesses have made their presentation, we will go to a series of rounds of questions with members. I might point out as well, although it says COVID-19 spending and programs, if you have any brilliant ideas on where we should be going on spending when we put the COVID-19 behind us, we're always open to that as well. And before I start with the first witness, I might have caused a little confusion at the close of the meeting the other day on next week. So we will deal with whatever day. I don't think the day is established yet. It's a constituency week. But on C224, which is Mr. St. Marie's private members bill, on clause by clause on that, we will start on that. And then that will be followed by Larry Maguire's private members bill. And that will complete that day. But anyone who has witnesses on Mr. Maguire's bill, please have their your witness list into the clerk. Certainly by Sunday night, I think, to give time to have them to appear the following week. And then the other day next week, we will have a public meeting with the law clerk relative to the motion that passed in an earlier session of this committee. So with that, is Dan Kelly here yet? I don't see him. Okay. We'll go to the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Angela McEwen, Senior Economist, National Services. Do I see you, Angela?
She's also not here, Mr. Chair.
Oh, she's not here either? Okay. Then we will start with, I guess we'll start with you, Mr. Mike Cassidy with Coach Atlantic Maritime Bus. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good afternoon to all. I represent an industry that is highly capital intensive, low margins, and very fragile, the bus motor coach industry across our country. And in the last 15 years, we've had a consolidation, we've had a rationalization within our industry with fewer and fewer motor coach bus operators working within our Canadian marketplace. And unfortunately, with that type of industry, we have COVID-19 in the last year. And we have COVID-19 with us for 2021. And it's been devastating, not only for my company, but for the industry. And to put it in perspective, when I compare our 2019 financial statement results to 2020 and our projections for 2021, it is a bleak picture because we feel in our industry that 2021 is not going to be any better than 2020 and could be worse. 2019, our best year in the business, we did $42 million in gross sales. 50% of that number, $21 million, was directly related to the tourism sector, cruise ship arrivals and multi-day tours. We did not have in 2020 cruise ship arrivals or multi-day tours. We do not expect cruise ship and multi-day tours for 2021. So we have thousands of motor coaches parked across this country with no work, and it's going to be 2 years back to back. We are essential to tourism. We are essential to passenger travel. And I realize today nobody really needs a motor coach, but we have to realize in May 2022, what we're considering the rebound year, our buses are going to be essential again, as we are an economic driver in our country, something to think about. When I look at our maritime bus inner city division that we operate here in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and we look at the municipal transit on Prince Edward Island, we are down over 50%. Now that's better than having no business at all. And the gratifying element of inner city and transit, our buses are on the road. We are providing essential services. We have time-sensitive parcel freight each and every day that has to be moved. We do blood work to make sure our hospitals within our maritime provinces have the blood that is needed out of the Canadian Blood Supply of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. At least the buses are moving. Operating expenses are higher than revenue in this stressed COVID environment, but they are moving. You ask, with $42 million, the math, we were $33 million lost in gross revenue in 2020. We're expecting 2021 to be another $30 million loss in gross revenue. How do companies like ourselves survive? Well, definitely we have to give credit to the programs of 2020. They were rolled out quickly. They were shotgun. I realize that. But by being quick, by being shotgun, it got money into our bank accounts. We have the wage subsidy. We have the rent subsidy that was very, very effective for our industry and a company like ours. We had the RRRF, your relief and recovery programs that were put in place. Fast, no charter bank involvement at all, done through our regional development organizations. A perfect program. When I think of our provincial municipal transit, the Safe Restart program to municipalities to help them with their transit operations, it was effective, and we hope that that type of program will be extended April the 1st. We hope the RRRF program will be extended April 1st. We are saying now that wage and rent subsidies for the hardest hit industries has to be considered to be extended from June of this year. Those are the type of programs that got us to where we are now. The huge losses that we have experienced. Last year, we had a 6-month deferral with our chartered banks on principal, and that was a huge cash flow saving. But the industry has been decimated. It's devastating to look at the staff that are not with us. It's devastating to look at the financial results, but we have to be positive. And when I look at our industry, I look at inner city. Inner city, I have always said, is public transit on provincial highways, no different than public transit on municipal streets. Why can't inner city operators be an eligible recipient for public transit infrastructure funds on a capital subsidy? Could we be recipients of Safe Restart programs? Because when we're in the rural areas, we are the public transit system for the rural areas. And we have been advocating prior to COVID-19 that we should be eligible for the similar programs of the municipal transit. We have just submitted last week for the pre-consultations a brand new group called the Coast to Coast Bus Coalition, so we can reestablish inner city busing from the east to the west and throughout our country with a feeder system. But I've always said we need to reinstate the Trans-Canada line. You need a Trans-Canada bus line, companies interlining to move parcels and to move passengers, something that we have to think about. Then you get into these motor coaches, the thousands that are sitting. And I only ask you to consider this, please. When they are sitting, how do we get them ready, willing, and able to go to work in May 2022? When it's the cruise ship ports, we all know that cruise ships don't dock if they're not buses on the wharf. Can we have a federal program of monies going into the ports? Can those ports have the discretionary power to administer those funds for strategic service providers to cruise ships? Could there be an arrival fee per passenger to help the ports administer funds for strategic service providers? Could there be a program put in place for motor coaches where it could be a $40,000 loan for each and every motor coach? And if you bring your buses back to work in 2022, 2023, 2024, could it be forgivable, knowing that you can bring your buses back to make sure we are the economic provider that this industry has been so good at being able to support many, many businesses. But now our industry is asking for support. And as I close, and this is just not for my industry, the motor coach industry and the tourism industry and highly impacted businesses, but for all, succession planning is something that we are going to have to think about. Many of us in business are older. I am 67 this year. I did not expect that this is how I was going to finish my business career. I am committed to stand with my company and my 3 sons that are with me in this company to make sure we get through and beyond COVID-19. But it's almost enough is enough. The stress, the strain, the responsibility. And there should be good tax considerations for succession planning as we pass the torch on to the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Cassidy. And I see you're here now, Dan Kelly. We'll go with you. We may have to test your mic to start. I'm not sure whether they did that. You've been here lots of times. You know the process. Dan Kelly with the Canadian Federation, President and CEO, Canadian Federation Independent Business. Dan, the floor is yours. Oops, you're on mute, Dan.
5,000th time. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, terrific. Well, look, thank you very much, Chair and members of Parliament, members of the committee. Great to be with you again. I did want to share with you some new data from CFIB. We just put out some this morning, and of course, a few of our recommendations for you. A deck was sent around in English and French. You should have that, members of the committee, and I wanted to just walk you through that. Businesses in Canada remain really shut down. On average, across Canada, only 51% of businesses are fully open at this stage across the country, lowest in Ontario. Some provinces, particularly Atlantic Canada and some of the Prairie provinces, doing better than that. On the staffing side, only about 40% of businesses are at normal levels of staffing, meaning 60% of them have fewer staff than is normal for them at this time of the year. And most concerning of all, only 25% of businesses have normal or better revenues than they do at this stage in the game. Small businesses are deeply concerned, this is slide 5, about the economic repercussions of COVID. Of course, this started out as a healthcare emergency, quickly morphed into an economic emergency. But there are many, many worries on the part of small business owners, economic repercussions, consumer spending concerns even following COVID, the sluggish vaccine rollout, their business cash flow, debt, stress. These are some of the things small business owners are telling us. I do want to flag some brand new data I mentioned we just put out today. One of the things that I think the committee should be very concerned about is the amount of COVID-related debt that small businesses have incurred since the start of the pandemic. Right now, across Canada, it is $170,000 in debt on average for a small firm in new COVID-related debt directly attributable to the pandemic. This is not necessarily, the bankers will tell you that it's not that businesses have been rushing out and borrowing a whole bunch more money, but it's typically unpaid bills that is the largest chunk of the debt. A lot of that is due to landlords, in part due to some of the failures of earlier rent relief programs. I agree with the previous speaker. The new rent support program is a much better version, but still not delivering in sufficient quantity to businesses that are being affected. So $170,000 in debt on average across Canada. And on slide 7, we highlight our estimate at CFIB, based on our member data, that 1 in 6 businesses across Canada are at significant risk of closing. That means that there could be 181,000 fewer small businesses, independently owned and operated businesses across the country, directly due to businesses that go bankrupt or wind down permanently, directly attributable to COVID and the damage that they sustained over the course of the emergency. And that would represent 2.4 million Canadian private sector jobs being taken out at the same time. Data will tell you, StatsCan will tell you that in fact business bankruptcies to date are actually lower than is normal. They too have been affected by the COVID emergency, just the process to wind up a business. But many firms are existing right now on government subsidies. And as those subsidies start to be ratcheted down, and we all hope one day we can replace subsidies with sales, but as those subsidies start to be taken out of the economy, many business owners are worried that they're not going to be able to make it, especially due to the previous data I shared, the amount of debt that they've gained over the course of the pandemic. So one in 6 businesses, 181,000, on top of the 60,000 Canadian businesses that have already gone bankrupt over the last little bit. That means that there could be a full wipeout of 20% of Canada's small and medium-sized businesses. Government has created, on slide 8, a number of very helpful programs. And I do credit Finance Committee and the government itself, opposition parties, of course, contributing to this as well, in the creation of many of these programs. It was slow, it was incomplete. There remain hundreds and hundreds of different exemptions and rules that have made that tens of thousands of business owners slip through the cracks of the program, but many have been helped. 65% of our members have used the CEBA bank account, which has now been topped up to $60,000 loans. 59% of our members have used the wage subsidy, the CEWS program. The Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, CERB, or its new the new one under EI, that has been used by entrepreneurs themselves. 28% of business owners have used those programs. But the rent support program, even now, only 26% of small businesses are able to use that program because there remain a number of significant gaps. We put forward 6 major recommendations. We've presented this to Finance, but let me just run through them quickly. We're asking government to extend and expand COVID support until the entire economy can recover, including opening Canada's borders. Really, the sign that government can start to stage back from subsidies is when governments themselves, federal and provincial, can stop telling Canadians to stay at home. Until we're at that point, we're not able, and we would not advise ratcheting back the subsidies that are provided to businesses to keep them alive, because so many businesses need that face-to-face interaction with the customer in order to make a living. We're asking you, pleading with you, to put a moratorium on any new taxes and costs to small businesses. We just can't handle it. We're unhappy that CPP premiums went up at the beginning of this year in the middle of this terrible time. We're asking you to delay further increases in CPP, the increases planned for the carbon tax, or at least provide a full rebate to the businesses that are affected by it, as well as a freeze in the liquor tax escalation. We really think that forgiving more small business debt is a chunk of the solution here, and there are pathways in existing programs. CEBA has now a third of it is forgivable if you repay the balance. Something similar to that could be adopted with the new HASCAP program, which we think has some potential. A hiring incentive would be a good idea as we transition from a shutdown economy to a reopened one. Red tape, making that a priority. And of course, holding off on any consumer stimulus. I'm really worried that the government may embark upon a big consumer stimulus measure. And while that might be helpful to some, if we do that too early, Businesses that rely on face-to-face transactions, which have been the ones that have been hardest hit, will not benefit from that because, of course, that money will be going to the parts of the economy that have remained open. I also, as I close, just want to commend the committee for its great recommendations in the recent report from Finance Committee. Many of the recommendations, the all-party recommendations, and then some that were put forward by parties themselves, make a lot of sense. Ones I wanted to highlight that we love are on slide 10. One of them is making good on the Liberal Party promise to small business owners to eliminate credit card processing fees on sales taxes. That, we believe, would save small businesses $500,000 a year. It was a promise in the 2019 Liberal Party platform, but we've seen no signs of that proceeding and urge the committee to keep the pressure up. Strong support for Bill C-208 that the Conservatives have put forward that would allow the same tax benefits to businesses selling their farm or small business from a parent to a child or family member. That's a great move and would be welcomed by farmers and business people across the country. A few others there that we have listed as well, but I know we're tight on time. Thank you again, committee. There's been a lot of good work done, and happy to take any questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. And just when we go to questions, I got a note here from the interpreters. Just can you hold your mic up a little closer to your mouth there, and they'll be able to hear a little more clearly. So then we'll turn to Angela McEwen with the Canadian Union of Public Employees. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting the Canadian Union of Public Employees to present to the committee. We're Canada's largest union with over 700,000 members. Our members work in a broad cross-section of the economy, such as in healthcare, education, municipalities, libraries, universities, social services, public utilities, emergency services, transportation, and airlines. And the current moment is unlike any previous economic recession or depression that Canada has seen. In this environment, it's essential that we continue to put the absolute priority on the health of Canadians, which includes income support to help households make ends meet, continued support of public services to meet their needs. This will not just help contain the pandemic, but it will also ensure that our economy, our small businesses, and our communities can bounce back faster once the public health crisis has ended. So we know that the federal government acted quickly to put supports in place at the beginning of the pandemic, such as the emergency response benefit, the wage subsidy, and other liquidity programs. And these made a real difference for millions of people in Canada. We do think that there is some room for improvement on the transparency, particularly of corporate supports. And to ensure the effectiveness and fairness of public spending, we think the federal government should strengthen conditions and improve transparency and accountability. And some of the ways that you could do this is make more information public about how the public money is being spent, include clauses that mandate labor protections for workers, including protections for benefits and implementation of health and safety protocols, include penalties if these clauses are not upheld, and ensure protection for whistleblowers. Where there is a union in the workplace, include them in the negotiations for wage subsidies and other support. For up to a year after corporations have received public subsidies or loans, we recommend the government implement prohibitions on dividends, capital distributions, and share repurchases, and to implement clear and transparent executive compensation restrictions. In terms of stimulus, we think that it's really important to prioritize spending. So even though the federal government is forecasting a significant deficit for this fiscal year, we don't think that's any reason to panic or pull back now. The rate for 30-year federal government bonds, as you all know, is at 2%, and 10-year bonds are below 1%. The Bank of Canada is supporting both federal and provincial governments by purchasing bonds directly and in secondary markets, ensuring that governments have a willing lender at low cost. This expands the supply of money that can be directed to public use, and arguably the cost of borrowing compared to the return on the investment that you make is a good fiscal guideline, better perhaps than debt to GDP or other proposals currently on the table for this moment. The federal government has the ability and the responsibility to shoulder the majority of the cost of the pandemic response and recovery, as well as a higher share of social spending going forward. Public investments in sectors like healthcare, childcare, livable communities, and energy efficient buildings will have a stronger impact on economic growth alongside lower inequality and improved well-being. This recession is different. It's affected different industries, occupations, and communities, especially women, low-income service workers, racialized workers, and migrant workers, much more severely. And so the federal government should take into account the ways that the pandemic has had an unequal impact and design solutions and partnerships with those hard-hit communities. It seems clear to us that our economic recovery depends on the recovery of the care economy. Women's economic participation has plummeted to levels not seen in 30 years, as COVID-19 shut down the economy and many workers were forced to leave their paid work to care for loved ones. So investment in the care economy, including healthcare, childcare, and social services, will have social and economic returns far higher than the current cost of borrowing. A vibrant, accessible care sector ensures everyone can participate in the workforce, which will be essential throughout the economic recovery. Government investment in care improves labor market outcomes for women and improves productivity, allowing governments to recoup those upfront costs later on. We note that quality public infrastructure is also essential for increasing the productivity of Canadian people and businesses. We strongly support increased funding for public transit, affordable housing, social community, and green infrastructure. All of these are important components of a healthy economic recovery. In order to fund the recovery, we think the government should consider tax fairness. Tax cuts since 2000 have reduced federal revenues by over $50 billion annually. And the major beneficiaries of these tax cuts have been large corporations and the wealthiest Canadians. These cuts have left a huge hole in federal budgets and have had a ripple effect across provincial budgets as the federal government stepped back from funding essential public services. As an example, one of the first priorities of this government after being reelected in 2019 was to introduce another $6 billion tax cut that primarily benefited higher income families. We recommend the government reverse this regressive tax cut that will save you $3 billion now and $6 billion per year when the cut was to be fully phased in. The federal government could increase revenues by over $50 billion without increasing tax rates on middle and low income Canadians with the following fair tax measures. Restoring the federal corporate tax rate to 21% would raise $13 billion. Eliminating wasteful and regressive tax loopholes would raise another $14 billion. Cracking down on tax avoidance by taxing multinational corporations based on their real economic activities would raise over $8 billion. A wealth tax of 1% on estates over $20 million, and an inheritance tax on estates over $5 million could raise another $8 billion. A financial activities tax on compensation and profits in the financial sector could raise $7 billion, and an excess profits tax to ensure that those who have been lucky enough to benefit from the pandemic, such as Canada's big banks that are announcing record profits, that they pay their fair share of the cost of supporting those who were not so lucky, those that Dan Kelly was just talking about, who have had to go bankrupt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. McEwen. And turning then to Michelin Canada, Andrew Much, President. The floor is yours, Andrew.
Good. Honorable Chairman Easter and members of the committee, my name is Andrew Much, and I'm the President of Michelin North America Canada Incorporated. It is an honor to appear before you today on behalf of my great company. Dedicated to the improvement of sustainable mobility, Michelin designs, manufactures, sells tires for every type of vehicle, including airplanes, automobiles, bicycles, farm equipment, heavy-duty trucks, and motorcycles. In addition to tires, the company also publishes travel guides, hotel and restaurant guides, maps, and road atlases. Michelin has a long and distinguished history in Canada. In 1969, Nova Scotia was selected as Michelin's first North American operation, establishing sites in Pictou County and Bridgewater, which opened in 1971, a third facility in Waterville in 1982. Today, Michelin Canada employs approximately 3,500 employees across our 3 plants in the province. We also employ an additional 130 people at our marketing and sales office based in Quebec, as well as field and support sales positions across Canada. Michelin plays a vital role in the economy of Nova Scotia in particular. We are the largest private sector employer, and our tires represent the 2nd largest export from the province. In an ordinary year, that's more than 5 million tires. Michelin is deeply committed to Canada and to contributing to the economic well-being of its people. As everyone knows, COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on our country and on the automotive industry as a whole. The impact of COVID on Michelin specifically was rapid and significant. For the first time in our 50-year history in Nova Scotia, we were facing a sizable potential layoff. In my 34 years with the company, I have never experienced a situation like this. Throughout the pandemic, we've been guided by our strong Michelin values when we focused on 3 things. First, taking care of our people, taking care of our customers and our business, and taking care of our communities. Since the beginning, we've had an unwavering focus on the safety of our people. Early in the pandemic, we developed and implemented numerous protocols to ensure our employees' health and well-being. These included mandatory masking, physical distancing, extra cleaning protocols, screening for symptoms, and many more. We are extremely proud that our facilities have remained a safe place to work throughout this pandemic. We also minimize the negative impact to our employees with the assistance provided by the federal government's wage subsidy program. This enabled us to keep our employees connected to the workplace during operational slowdowns, while also enabling them to retain their benefits and to continue their pension contributions. We are proud to report that we have been able to recall all of our employees now and have even hired additional workforce since last July, bringing our total employment numbers above pre-COVID levels. Commercially, we saw an unprecedented impact on our sales. Our overall revenue dropped and commercial signals were clearly uncertain, but we needed to ensure that we were in a position to rebound quickly in response to any market upticks. CEWS helped us to ensure that we could bring employees back to work as quickly as possible when the market showed signs of recovery. In addition to mitigating the economic impact as the largest employer in Nova Scotia, we also felt we had an important role to play from a community support perspective. Among other things, early in the pandemic, Michelin was able to donate 200,000 masks to frontline healthcare workers and long-term care homes in Nova Scotia and Quebec. We were proud to show our community leadership in this time of crisis. But COVID is not over. We are working diligently every day to keep our plants and our communities safe while meeting the needs of our customers and contributing to Canada's economy. The CEWS program was crucial in enabling us to do that and to minimize the financial impact to our employees and their families. We sincerely appreciate the responsiveness of the federal government to deliver the program that enabled us to retain our employees and then to begin to ramp back our business to normal levels. I have no doubt this program was instrumental in allowing us to reduce the impact of COVID on our employees, on our company, and on our communities. And for this, we are grateful. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Much. And do we have Restaurants Canada here? There she is. I couldn't see Lauren. With Restaurants Canada, Lauren Vanderberg, Executive Vice President. Go ahead. Floor is yours. You're muted, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. You'd think I have that put on a t-shirt by now, and yet here we are. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's lovely to see some familiar Zoom faces. I'd like to use our time here to walk you through a quick overview of what the restaurant industry has gone through since the start of this apocalypse, as well as what we're uniquely situated to do to help kickstart Canada's economic engine as part of our proposed recovery plan. A deck should have been shared with you that I'll walk you through right now. And if you want to turn to the first slide labeled pre-tax profits, we can dive right in. So restaurants and the many small and medium-sized businesses that make up the Canadian food service sector are a critical pillar of our culture, economy, and local communities. Before the pandemic struck, our industry comprised of over 9,800,000 establishments from coast to coast to coast, contributing 4% to the country's total GDP, and we served about 22 million customers each and every day. And something that most Canadians don't realize is that even during the best of times, the average food service establishment keeps less than 50 cents of every $10 spent on a restaurant meal. The rest goes right back into the economy. As we are now nearly a year into the COVID-19 crisis, we believe that now is the time to reflect on what's worked and also maybe what hasn't. We need to begin paving the way for a post-pandemic future that will ensure as many restaurants as possible are still left in the picture so that they can continue feeding Canada's recovery, both literally and figuratively. Moving now to the next slide. What you're seeing here is 2 decades of growth erased in 2 months at this time last year. Essentially, our industry fell off a cliff and then broke both legs. And the truth is we're still struggling. If you move to the next slide, you'll see that prior to the pandemic, the food service sector was Canada's 4th largest employer. We directly employed 1.2 million people. But our industry lost more jobs in the first 6 weeks of the pandemic than the entire Canadian economy lost during the 08-09 recession. No other industry has come close to facing this level of shortfall. If we move to the next slide, you'll see that there are still more than 380,000 fewer jobs in the Canadian food service sector than there were in February 2020. Meanwhile, all the other industries have recovered at least 85% or more of their pandemic job losses. And moving to the next slide, I want to just touch on the fact that we really do believe that it is now more than ever the time to make doing business as easy as possible. And it's because we were hit first and hit hardest by this apocalypse that we are uniquely situated to serve as that fiscal anchor to guide our economic recovery, because we are job creators. By investing in support programs specifically for employers, our industry can make every subsidy or grant dollar go that much further. If you turn now to the chart of recommendations on the next slide, what I'd like to highlight here are some of the key pillars of part of our recovery plan. This will be shared with you once it's finished making its way through the translation hoops. But as we transition through the remainder of the COVID-19 pandemic and toward a strong and resilient recovery, there needs to be an evolution from emergency measures to a framework that supports business continuity and a favorable economic relaunch condition for the longer term. So looking at the wage subsidy, we believe that there are some enhancements and recalculations that should be made to the program to ensure that it's responding to the evolving economic and public health climate. So our restaurant relief model, which utilizes 2019 sales values as an essential and sustainable baseline, will allow our operators to stretch every dollar and truly invest in local communities by being that job creator across the country. So under this restaurant relief model, we're proposing that the wage subsidy equal 1.6 times the decline in 2019 sales, with appropriate adjustments made for new businesses that opened in 2020, up to a maximum of 75%. We are also recommending that the wage subsidy then be extended through April 1st, 2022. Looking at the rent subsidy piece now, we believe that the eligibility requirements for this subsidy program need to reflect the diverse and innovative food service business models. And as currently drafted, the rent subsidy program does not capture the operational realities of multi-unit restaurants, and as a result, unintentionally leaves out many small and medium-sized business operators who are still struggling to survive this crisis. We are therefore recommending that the $300,000 cap on multi-unit operations across the country be eliminated and instead calculated on a per location basis, again with appropriate adjustments made for new businesses that opened in 2020. We are also recommending that the rent and wage subsidy programs be extended through April 1st, 2022. Restaurant operators are resilient and resourceful, but they cannot continue to operate at a loss for months on end. If we want to build back a stronger, sustainable economy that continues to reflect our country's incredible diversity, our industry is the best place to start, and our restaurant relief model is the best way to do it. I'll close just by saying that literally and figuratively, we believe restaurants are key to feeding Canada's economic recovery. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vanderberg. Those are shocking numbers, I will admit. Before I turn to Teamsters Canada, I'll just give the line up for the first round of questions. Mr. Kelly first, Mr. Fraser second, then Mr. St. Marie and Mr. Julian. So turning to Teamsters Canada, Marian Abdo-Dib, Director, Government Affairs. Miriam? Where did she go? Mr. Clerk, did we lose the Teamsters?
She's there, Miriam. She's in the meeting. She's just not, her camera's not open and she's muted. So I don't know that she's behind her screen.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it's very hard to lose Teamsters.
It
They're
is,
usually
yes.
visible, you know.
That's true. Okay, then we will just watch for her, Mr. Clerk, and when she comes back on, we will let her in to make her presentation. You can have IT contact her, and we'll go from there. So 6-minute round, Mr. Kelly, you're up.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to start with the other Mr. Kelly on our call, and ask you to comment a little bit further on what your members are going through, particularly with the news today that was reported about the debt levels of small businesses. 175,000 average debt per small business is a staggering number, and the fact that a significant portion of this debt is not public aid money at low rates or forgivable. It's not bank debt at historically low rates, but in fact unpaid commitments that may threaten to bring down tens of thousands of these businesses. Could you comment on the details of what it means to what this debt crisis among small business really means at ground level? Yeah,
thanks very much. And Pat Kelly is my grandfather's name too, so growing up in Manitoba, obviously not you. We are really, really worried though about the levels of debt that businesses are incurring. And as I was saying in my commentary, I think that there is a growing sense, and certainly the momentum in terms of getting government support programs amended and changed and fixed seems to be evaporating in government right now. I think there's a sense that we've got the supports in place, let's just keep them going for a little bit longer and then we'll be done. The economic damage that we've seen so far is a tiny, tiny portion of what we will be seeing in the days ahead. Even with a robust recovery and COVID coming to an end soon, reopening happening as is beginning to happen in most provinces, other than the terrible job the Ontario government has done. We're starting to see some signs of life, but I can tell you that businesses, when they reopen, they're going to be looking at their bills and their income in May and in June and the summer, and they'll be lucky to be able to pay their current expenses, let alone trying to make a dent in the $170,000 in COVID-related debt that they will have inherited, and all those bills for back rent, for inventory that they've either had to chuck in a restaurant setting or perhaps sell at fire sale prices in a retail setting. Those costs have not gone away. They're not going to be forgiven in most circumstances. And there'll be an anchor around the neck of the business owner, dragging them under as the economy begins to recover, and we'll wonder what the heck went on.
Yeah, so you raised a point, and that is around the cracks in all of the various aid programs, and we've raised many of them, and right from the beginning, and the government responded to many of the problems that the opposition raised and made many adjustments to things like CEBA and other programs. And yet there remain businesses that have fallen through the cracks. We all hear about it in our own ridings,
Yes.
especially businesses that were maybe brand new, about to open in March of 2020, having already drained all of their savings and expended all of their capital to get a business started. Could you comment on these specific failings? Here's a chance. You got the parliamentary secretary for finance on the call. Let's go ahead and tell the government what the problems are that with their aid programs.
Sure. Look, I agree with your assessment. The government has been moving to fix based on feedback in real time. I don't fault government for not getting these programs out. I do fault them for the slowness in some of them, but I don't fault them for not getting them all right the very first day. This is a new emergency, and there has been an open avenue and lots of dialogue happening, far more than was the case prior to the pandemic. But I will say that effort really has slowed. New businesses were promised by the Prime Minister in May of 2020, that they would be given access to government support programs, and there's not been a single movement on that to allow small firms to access CEBA, CERS, the wage subsidy, or HASCAP. Though that needs to change. So new businesses with $600,000 in investments to start up a restaurant. It came on stream in April, was shut down, opened for a couple of months, shut down again. They've been ineligible for every single one of the federal programs. And while there's been talk about fixing that, no action at all. There are other program failures. The rent subsidy, for example, just to raise a couple there, one of them is that one of the requirements is you as a business owner to use the rent subsidy have to pay your entire rent bill in order to apply, in order to use the program. So let's say your rent's $10,000 a month. The rent subsidy is going to deliver you $4,000. That's great. You're happy to get that. That'll help you address some of the gap. But if you don't have the $6,000 to pay your landlord, you cannot use the rent subsidy in its current structure. And we've raised this with government. Even landlords are saying, allow the tenant to get the $4,000 and pay me with that. It'll reduce the debt that they're experiencing. But there's been no movement on that. Just yesterday, the government fixed a couple of small details of the rent subsidy, some of the problems that we were facing in terms of the comparator months, but a lot of gaps there. Wage subsidy, the same problems exist. The CEBA loan program, tons of businesses have slipped through the cracks. They're either too small, so the micro-sized businesses have been squeezed out. There is a list as long as my arm of businesses that unfortunately, while are anxious to get some of these useful programs, but cannot because the rules don't allow them to do that.
Thank you both. We'll let it go on to Mr. Fraser, 6 minutes.
Thanks very much. And look, given the local connection, I'll start with Mr. Much, who's here from Michelin North America. Andrew, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. You spoke a bit about the importance of the wage subsidy program, not just to your company, but to the people who work there. And I want to say I remember those early days starting to talk about the EI WorkShare program and eventually seeing you guys on the wage subsidy. You highlighted in your remarks the importance of the wage subsidy, and you mentioned that there would have been more severe impacts had it not been there. Had you actually done any sort of consideration of the potential scenarios that give you an idea of where you would be today or the impact it would have had on your business had the wage subsidy not been there for you?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And you're exactly right. The impact that we saw was unprecedented in our history in Nova Scotia for sure. Our revenue dropped precipitously, and we knew we had to act. And early on in the process, we looked to see what we could was available to us. And as the CEWS program became more available and was rolled out, that looked like the program that would help us to maintain our viability and to keep our employees engaged with our company, and we could manage our way through that one. The potential for the significance of it, Mr. Fraser, was as I say, unprecedented. And we were very concerned about our ability to keep employees with us, not to get into layoffs and all the ramifications that has on our employees and their families and our communities. And so we were happy to be able to see the program become available to us, and we're happy that it could work out.
So I'm curious, you mentioned you're now back to better than pre-pandemic employment levels because there's been some new hiring. One of the things that jumps out at me when I look at the province to province job statistics from Stats Canada is that Nova Scotia is back to about 95% of pre-pandemic employment levels. I'm curious if the cases that you've experienced of job growth, in fact, would be the same if you were actually in an area where the public health situation maybe didn't allow you to ramp back up as quickly. Has your presence in Nova Scotia actually, because of the public health response, allowed you to rebound more quickly?
Absolutely. The infection rate in Nova Scotia has been, some of the best in the world, and very much under control. And that has become a strategic advantage for us because of that. You look, we're a worldwide company, and we look at other areas of the world, and you can see how impacted they have been by such a much higher infection rates than we are seeing. So we've been greatly advantaged by the way that the infection and the pandemic has been able to be under control in Nova Scotia. So that absolutely has helped us to recover and be where we are today. Infection rates being much higher, it would have been much more difficult to hire people and recruit them and have the operations that we have today.
Thanks very much. A quick question for Mr. Cassidy. One of the things that I couldn't help but notice is you kind of presented an easy fix for us. We get a lot of money that we announced recently for transit. If we actually allowed intercity provincial highway transit, as you sort of framed it, to be eligible the same way that municipal transit systems are for the recently announced funding for public transit, does that more or less solve your problem?
Thank you very much, Member Fraser. Yes, there is no question. And I think that I saw nods when I was speaking. Public transit on provincial highways is no different than public transit on municipal streets. We just took delivery of municipal transit buses this week. They're $550,000 on average for a typical municipal bus. A motor coach today is $610,000. And we have always said that if you could have a capital subsidy for your operating rolling stock, a one-time subsidy where those buses have a 10 to 12 year useful life. We all know how hard it is each and every year asking for operating subsidies. The capital subsidy, if we could mirror that in intertransit, inner city, similar to municipal, we could be in a position as owner operators where you do not have to pay monies and cash flow for principal and interest. You have monies available for operating costs. So we feel eligibility under Public Transit Infrastructure Fund, including the inner city, is a perfect recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, do I have time for one more quick question?
Very quick.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, thank you for the work that you've done through this pandemic, despite certain criticisms that I appreciate and have jotted down. I really do appreciate the advice CFIB has provided from the outset of this pandemic. You focused heavily on solutions to small and medium-sized business debt. Obviously, the situation with government subsidies can't carry on in perpetuity. The private sector, I think, is going to play an important role at a certain point in time. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on the role that an equity tax credit could play that's limited in duration to help with the economic recovery, to actually help some of these businesses that may not otherwise survive, not just get back on their feet, but grow in a healthy way once it's safe to do so.
You're muted. No, go ahead.
Yes, I'm taking it off. I'm not sure that I understand what you mean by an equity tax credit. but the idea of some support as we move from lockdowns to ending of stay-at-home orders and advice, and then into an open economy, that transition is going to be a really delicate one, different for every sector of the economy, as was noted by my friend at Restaurants Canada. We are going to need a variety of measures. The one that I would advocate most strongly to move us towards recovery with the pool that the Deputy Prime Minister has already suggested she's allocated for this purpose, but would be to try to find some ways to relieve small business debt. The CEBA model with the current 1/3 that is forgiven could be ratcheted up. We've suggested that be expanded to an $80,000 loan with 50% forgivable. The other is to move a forgivable component into the HASCAP loan for the highly affected sector. If you did that, we think that businesses would be helped. If equity implies perhaps a government partial ownership of a business, I'm not sure that would be something that we would do, but
And to be clear, that's not what I'm interested in. I'm wondering if we can make it easier for investors within communities to help invest in businesses within their communities as they transition to reopening. I expect I'm out of time, so if you have thoughts on that, perhaps we could have a follow-up conversation.
You are at a time, but that was a very good discussion. We're back to Ms. Dibb with the Teamsters. We'll allow you to make your presentation, and then we'll come to Mr. St. Marie and the question list. Ms. Abdou-Dibb.
Thank you so much, Chair and members of the committee. I apologize. I think, like many of us, I have a love-hate relationship with technology, and thankfully it's working again. So here we go. So on behalf again of 125,000 members of Teamsters Canada, the vast majority who work in the transportation industry, rail, road, air, as well as a significant important number that work in hospitality, tourism, trade show, and sports entertainment sectors, I would like to thank you for inviting us to present before this committee. Allow me to begin by stating that Teamsters Canada is of the firm belief that saving lives, protecting public health, and containing the coronavirus outbreak must remain the federal government's overriding priority. In the short term, this includes continued income support for individuals unable to work due to COVID-19, as well as proper personal protective equipment, workplace health and safety precautions, training for workers, appropriate testing, and of course, vaccinations. However, the number of workers who are currently facing the prospect of an end to their benefits in the coming weeks. Yes, we just heard, thankfully, the EI, the temporary move to extend the EI provisions, but it's still quite staggering when you think of the numbers of workers who have been receiving the CRB. In late January, that number was 844,000. There are 129,000 workers who were receiving the Canada Recovery caregiving benefit in late January, and of course the 2.3 million people who are currently receiving EI benefits. Having said this, it's clear that Canada is in the midst of an economic crisis. No one is disputing that, but this crisis has disproportionately affected low-paid and vulnerable workers in precarious employment, especially women, young workers, newcomers, workers of color, workers with disabilities. And federal fiscal policy measures must prioritize helping Canadians return to decent jobs. For Teamsters Canada, this especially means expanding access to training and apprenticeship opportunities. As public health measures permit, fiscal policy measures and responding to the recession and unemployment crisis will need to prioritize helping Canadians return to good jobs. Accordingly, the plan for economic recovery must be gendered, must be inclusive, inequality reducing, and sustainable. As we know, Canada's low-wage workers were hit the fastest and the hardest in this pandemic. They would have received little from EI, even if they had qualified for benefits. So Canada got it right by fixing this issue and creating programs like the wage subsidy programs for employers and the CERB as well. So as we head into this recovery, workers will need an inclusive, streamlined, and simplified EI program that doesn't disadvantage low-paid workers in non-standard employment. So as government moves to reform EI, a clear timeline for a broad review of the program with full public participation should be set. Equitable investment in critical social infrastructure are also needed to ensure that no one will be left behind in Canada's recovery efforts. And I think saying that we endorse the recommendations as outlined by Angela McEwen from CUPE is somewhat fair. I want to stress one particular area here in that how the pandemic did prove that care work and care jobs are critical and remain vital to broad-based recovery. Therefore, we do support the establishment of a coordinated plan for strengthening Canada's care economy. And this includes working with provincial and territorial governments to regulate long-term care. It should implement high standards for long-term care work, mandating high staff to resident ratios in order to ensure quality care, and provide caregivers with full-time jobs with benefits like paid sick leave. It's no secret that not all workers, including many Teamsters, will be able to go back to their pre-pandemic jobs. Many of those jobs, especially for our members, for example, in the hospitality, tourism, trade show, and sports entertainment industries, could be lost. More and more workers need retraining, and this means investing in training programs and mechanisms to ensure that workers can access them and survive at the same time. We believe that especially now, to enhance the ability of low-wage workers to upgrade and acquire portable skills, the new EI training support benefit should be expanded from 4 weeks to a minimum of 16 weeks in order to allow for acquiring certifiable and transferable credentials. And the replacement rate for EI training support benefits really should be set at least 85% of the average weekly earning rather than the currently proposed 55%. The government must prioritize broad access to vocational education, training, and apprenticeship opportunities for women and men, and especially disadvantaged groups, including youth, lower skilled workers, workers with disabilities, newcomers to Canada, and racialized workers. This pandemic has provided us all, but especially decision makers, with an opportunity to take a pause and reflect on what is right and what is wrong with our economy, and how to ensure that we're ready for any disasters in our future and the future of our future generations. As Labour, we believe that getting Canadians back to work and fully employed in decently paid, productive work, along with public investment in infrastructure and renewal of expansion of social and public services must be the priority, and that will lead us onto the path of an economic recovery that's gendered, inclusive, and sustainable. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le Président, vous êtes en...
Mr. Chair, I believe that you're on mute.
Gabriel, thank you very much for your presentation. Turning then to Mr. St. Marie, 6 minutes, followed by Mr. Julian.
Oui, merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, thank you to all our witnesses. It's very compelling. I very much appreciated Mr. Cassidy's presentation. We could tell that you understand what's being borne by your members very well, and your solutions are very interesting. I'd have questions for Ms. Vandenberg and Mr. Kelly. So I'd like to hear you with respect to restaurants and small businesses that are often independent. In other words, sole proprietorships and family businesses. They are the soul, in many ways, of our downtown areas. They provide color and texture to all of our communities. And these businesses have been affected by the pandemic, and in a year from now, after the pandemic, perhaps longer than that, what I'm afraid of is that these businesses, these restaurants that are the soul of our downtown areas, that they simply close, that they are permanently shuttered, despite the large programs that have been implemented by the government, and assuming that these benefits even are paid out for some time to come. So to Ms. Kelly, to Mr. Kelly and Ms. Vandenberg, what do we need to do to ensure the survival of these businesses and restaurants?
Do you want to start, Ms. Vandenberg?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question.
Points is something I touched on. Independent operators in restaurants, small business owners across the country are really the heart and soul of local communities. They anchor local communities. We've seen restaurant owners have no choice but choose to add debt to their balance sheets in order to survive, to remain open. But the amount of debt is no longer sustainable for many, if not most, and it absolutely cannot be a long-term solution for our industry. And that's why we're calling for the subsidy programs to be extended through April 1st, 2022, and tied to a baseline of 2019, as well as you'll see in the recovery plan, we're calling for a larger portion of the loan programs like HASCAP to be forgivable, because asking small business owners to take out debt, to pay down debt is a vicious cycle that honestly no one is going to win at. I want to touch on a couple of quick key points here.
Before you do, Lorraine, could you raise your mic about half an inch? It's getting a popping sound in the translator's ears. There you go.
Apologies. Is this better? I really want to stay on the good side of the interpreters here. I know who runs the show. So apologies. Hopefully that's better. What I want to point out is that as an industry, we employ more people per dollar than any other sector. And again, when you spend $10 at a restaurant, the average establishment keeps less than 50 cents. The rest goes back to the economy in the form of jobs, of food and beverage purchases, of contributions to local charities, and many more. And there's also a very real taxation difference that translates to a significant return on investment for governments in exchange for supporting restaurants. So every $100 that Canadians spend on groceries generates about $1.20 in taxes. Meanwhile, that same $100 spent at a restaurant represents $13 in taxes that go back to the government. So when I talk about restaurants being key to feeding the recovery, I'm not being facetious. It's genuinely our best way forward to bring back 500,000 jobs for women, for visible minorities, for new Canadians, and to ensure that our youth still have access to invaluable first job experiences.
Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, if we broaden the discussion to small businesses, many of the things that Lauren shared are very relevant for all of the sectors. Now, keep in mind, the sectors that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, we've talked about the groups of employees that have been hardest hit, but they include restaurants and hospitality more broadly. Arts and recreation businesses have just been eviscerated by the pandemic. The retail sector has been hit desperately hard. And the service businesses, hair salons, nail salons, and others, all those businesses that rely on face-to-face or in-person contact, often physical contact with their customer, have been just really, really hard hit. And many of them are not going to survive this. We are getting more and more stories of business owners calling us, often in tears, saying that they've been a successful business for 50 years and they have nothing left. They're done, and they're asking, to whom do they turn in the keys to their business? As I've mentioned at committee before, an increasing number of calls that are turning into suicide prevention to CFIB's business helplines from business owners that are that desperate because they see their life's work, their income, and often their home, which they've remortgaged in order to support the business, potentially disappearing before their eyes. These are desperate times, and they add a huge amount of richness to the Canadian economy. We need them, and we need them to stick around. As committee members know, my organization opposes business subsidies, often is advising you against creating new subsidy programs for business, and I've somehow become Canada's leading advocate for business subsidization right now. The reason for that is that these are often good, solid businesses that are there, but they cannot survive with the requirements for physical distancing that we have right now, either the lockdowns or just advice to Canadians to stay home. And that's why I think government needs to support them and fix the gaps in the programs, fix them quickly, so that Canadians have jobs to come back to when this is all over.
Okay, we are overtime there. Something might be worth considering, Dan, in that area. When we went through that situation in a farm crisis years ago, we put in place farm debt review boards, which also had help on the mental pressure. Might be worth looking at in the small business community, because you're right. That's when you have your house up on the line, it's no fun. Turning to Mr. Julian for 6 minutes, and then on to Mr. Falk.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks to all our witnesses for being here today and to provide your very valuable testimony. And we hope that you and your families continue to stay safe during this pandemic. We're now in the second wave, anticipating tragically a third wave coming soon. My first questions will go to Ms. McEwen and Ms. Abu-Dib. I wanted to ask you, because you both spoke about the issue of inequality and addressing inequalities in a meaningful way. We went through the Second World War. We had a crisis that was very similar in many ways, both economic and social at the same time. We had in place wealth taxes. We had in place excess profit taxes. The banks this week have announced massive profits, now clearing 40, going towards $50 billion during the pandemic, and received $750 billion of liquidity support in the same period. It happened within days. We've seen Canada's billionaires increase their wealth by over $60 billion. The web giants, the largest corporations in Canada, don't pay taxes. How important is this issue of dealing with tax fairness? How essential is that, so that we can actually put in place the other measures as well that you're both speaking to, that help to address what is growing and obscene inequality in our country? And I'll start with Ms. McEwen.
Ms. McEwen?
Thank you very much. I mean, this is a question that I've been thinking a lot about. I know that the federal government can continue to borrow money to fund the stimulus that we need right now, but eventually we'll need to increase tax fairness. The federal government will need to increase revenue. You have public sector workers at all levels that have seen this game play out before, and they're all afraid of coming austerity. They're all worried about the eventual story that we're going to hear. We all need to tighten our belts, and governments are like households, which they aren't, right? A government budget is completely different than a household budget. So we should absolutely not be in any situation where we're worried about going into deficit. But we do need to think about inequality in the way that our tax system fosters increased inequality and changes the decisions that corporations make with where they're spending their money. And so we've seen a bunch of corporations who have taken money from the federal government and continue to pay out dividends, who've had huge share buybacks, because what they want to do right now is boost their share prices, which boosts executive compensation, which just in the middle of this crisis that is already hitting low-income workers, small businesses the hardest. Our tax system is structured in a way that the biggest and the wealthiest can kind of leverage that and make even more money. And so we need to start changing the legislation in the system so that we can improve both the structures that create inequality, and so that we'll reduce it. And then we can fund the types of things that Miriam and I were both talking about in terms of creating a more equal and more prosperous economy going forward.
Thank you.
Dib.
Thank you for that question. I think, of course, agreeing with Angela on the points that she raised, the other consideration is thinking about closing the loopholes that benefit mostly large corporations and the very wealthy. We're not talking here about small businesses and the local businesses that are represented here. We're really talking about big corporations, large corporations. There's a lot of tax avoidance by these, the ability for tax avoidance by these large corporations. So that's something that we need to really look at and consider. There have been tax cuts for for large profitable corporations that span the last 20 years that we should really be re-examining. And finally, I think we also need to be looking at how to generate additional revenue for the transition as we transition into a recovery by implementing something like a wealth tax, again, for the very, very wealthy, and look at restoring those corporate tax rates to even 2010 levels would make a significant difference. So those are the kind of things that I think we should be examining when it comes to fair taxation.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to come back to Ms. McEwen. You've talked very passionately about the care economy, universal childcare. We need public universal pharmacare. Yesterday, the government rejected the only legislation in this parliament for public universal pharmacare. How important is it for the caring economy, Ms. McEwen, that we put in place these universal programs that everybody can benefit from?
Yes, so pharmacare is a great example because a lot of people lost their coverage when they lost their jobs. And so then they were out of, they couldn't afford their medicine because they didn't have money and they didn't have coverage. And so universal pharmacare would make sure that you're always covered, whether or not you have the job. And so that's called an automatic stabilizer. That's something that reduces the impact of recessions to individuals and companies. And it makes it easier for companies because they don't have to provide that benefit then to employees. It's cheaper. They save a lot of money if we can do it kind of as we do with universal Medicare, right? It's a group insurance type program. And so that provides cost savings to the whole system, and it stabilizes people's income. So that's really important also in terms of inequality, because it tends to be the lowest income people that don't have access to that ever.
Okay, we will have to move on to Mr. Falk, who will be followed by Ms. Sirowitz. 5-minute round, Ted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to start with Mr. Much. Mr. Much, you are the biggest private job creator in the province of Nova Scotia there. You saw a dip in your business revenue this past year. You were able to use some of the CEWS program. Some of the discussion here at this committee room I'm curious about your response to that. I don't think you'd be considered a small business. You'd probably be considered one of the larger businesses or big corporations. How do you feel about getting whacked with the tax increase once you return to profitability after you've provided all those jobs for the province and created wealth not only for yourself but for many of your employees?
Well, thank you for the question. Obviously the concern is that we as a large employer in the province, we want to be able to make sure that we can sustain that and make sure that we're here for the presence. We can be and have been a real backbone for our province, and the sustainability of that is what's interesting to us. At a global level, I'm sure we're all aware that we compete internationally. We don't compete just within Canada. 75% of our product is exported, and in order to compete at a world level, we have to have the appropriate environment here to be viable for the long term. If we are to stay sustainable, then we have to be competitive, and being competitive is paying the competitive tax rate. Correct. And in order to grow and we are always interested in looking at ways that we can grow and build our operations, then we have to compete with solutions all around the world.
Okay.
And that means.
Thank you for that. I can't imagine that you would anticipate or eagerly anticipate a tax increase once your company has turned the bend and returned to a profitable status, where you're going to be contributing to the province, the community, and also your employees' livelihoods. And as a personal user of your on and off road product, I'd sure hate to see you go away. So thank you for the good work you do and the excellent product you produce.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Mrs. Vandenberg a few questions as well. You know, one of my constituents this morning approached me about what I was doing for them. They happen to own 5 Smitty's restaurants. They said, "What have you done for me lately?" And I said, "You know, I'm going to be doing something for you this afternoon. Your industry is presenting at Finance Committee, and I'm going to ask them some good questions. Give them an opportunity to toot your horn." One of the biggest problems that has been communicated to me is that in the restaurant business is the provincial lockdowns and restrictions that have prevented them from running their business. Does your industry have any stats at all as to COVID transmission rates from the restaurant industry?
Thank you so much. That's a fabulous question, and I'm happy to help everyone's horn get a little bit tooted here. I think one of the really frustrating aspects of this particular apocalypse is the inconsistent application of restrictions and lockdowns and rolling restrictions and ongoing lockdowns and how they vary from province to province to region. I think Dan and I have probably yelled ourselves hoarse at the Ontario government for, by way of example, for some of the frustratingly short-sighted policies that are being implemented, because businesses need continuity. Being told that we can open and then at the drop of a hat suddenly know we need to close for an unspecified amount of time. In Toronto alone, we've been shut down since mid-October. That means we are coming up on near 200 and something days where many businesses, mainly restaurants, have been shut down with little to no source of revenue. And
my understanding also is that the CERB has negatively impacted some of your businesses because a lot of your employees are part-time. The CERB ends up paying them more than what they would have received had they taken the work that was available to them. So I would just like to put that on the record just as a way of confirmation for you. And then I'd like to skip over to somebody else because I need to get one more question in.
Yes, absolutely. I will just circle really quickly back to, I appreciate the CERB comment of the transmission rates. One of the frustrating points about the Ontario government, as I speak quickly, is the lack of transparency in terms of sharing their data. So right now we're working off the numbers from Dr. Henry in Alberta, who has been the only region to share numbers so far, and restaurants clock in at less than 0.1% of transmission data. We are the safe alternative to private gatherings. Our members have invested $750 million in PPE equipment and staff training to ensure that you can come and eat a meal with family and friends.
Quick final question there, Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. Turning to Mr. Cassidy, I've been listening closely to your comments. Would a refundable investment tax credit on new capital purchases address your concern?
Very good question, and thank you, member. It would, again, what I am scared of as a refundable, it would be the amount when you take a $600,000 motor coach, for example. What would the percentage be? Because when we look at the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund, in many cases, there's the 40-cent federal dollars in this program. In many provinces, it's matched by 33% dollars. So I'm a little bit worried with a refundable tax credit. Would we have enough actual cash dollars from the purchase of a motor coach? And then when you are buying your motor coaches, we have to understand too, with the capital cost allowance, there is many, many times, depending on the amount of motor coaches you have, you do get your taxable income lowered through the CCA. And then if you had the refundable, I don't think it would give it the amount of cash that a capital program would do for your operation.
Well, that's what an investment tax credit would be if it would be refundable. It would be on the purchase of a new capital asset. Years ago, there was a program that offered 10% on the purchase of any new capital asset, and that's right up front. You get that. That'd be a huge stimulus to your business.
Yes, it would start, but I don't mean to just use the 10% example, member, but if the total operating costs and the revenues that we have for sustainability, I do not feel within our industry that 10% would be welcomed, but in the inner city component, it would not be sufficient to carry. It would not be enough assistance.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for your flexibility.
Okay. Not a problem. We'll now turn to Ms. Zurwitz and Elizabeth May. I know you're here somewhere. Gabriel is going to give you his 2.5 minutes, so you'll be next after Mr. Zurwitz. Thanks, Gabriel. Julie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank everybody for their presentations and for your contributions to our deliberations today. My first questions are to Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly, I believe that Bill C-14, which is trying to find its way through our House right now, is going to at least partially address the issue that you raised about rent having to be paid up front. So if whether my recollection is correct or not, could you just tell us what is the impact of C-14 being held up in the House having on small business?
Thank you for the question. I don't think that C-14 helps us at all on the rent subsidy program, but it is important legislation nonetheless, and we do ask all parties to work quickly to get it across the finish line. That legislation, my understanding is, also helps us significantly with refunding some of the RRRF measures, the Regional Recovery and Response Funds. Though those dollars are running out in some of those programs, and for some businesses that were unable to access other government programs like CEBA, they have depended on these regional funds in order to get some support. And so time is of the essence, and we're urging you, parliamentarians, to pass that quickly. But there were some changes made to the rent support program. Changes just announced, I believe, yesterday, but I think that is separate.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm a little tired today, so I might not be recalling correctly. Anyways, my next question is about your first chart, which is that the business is fully open and there's a difference between Nova Scotia at the top and Ontario at the bottom. My colleague, Mr. Fraser, had suggested that perhaps public health measures has a bit of an impact as to sort of the number of businesses being open. And I think it was verified by Mr. Much earlier. One, do you agree with that? And two, what would you say would be maybe a couple of other factors that might be impacting this wide difference across our country?
Yeah, look, the biggest difference is how far governments have needed and for how long governments have needed to lock down the business community. And of course, Atlantic Canada took a different approach by basically sealing off the borders quickly and then preventing much of the lockdowns that might otherwise have been necessary. Not that they haven't used them at all, but most Atlantic provinces have had to use short-term duration lockdowns of some sectors of the economy, which has lessened the impact, not eliminated, of course, the impact on some of those sectors. The biggest effect, of course, of those provinces that have had to use wide-scale and long-term lockdowns. Just as a bit of color here, Toronto and Peel now have likely, and I stand to be corrected on this, the longest lockdowns in North America. And businesses have been locked down, depending on the sector, for 220 days since the pandemic began. Ontario has been the worst responding province in the country by about a mile in terms of addressing the impact of COVID-19 on this and protecting small and medium-sized businesses from the problems. They've been one of the only provinces that have also allowed big box stores to remain open while shutting down small firms, a policy I can't understand. The Ford government should be deeply ashamed of itself in the way that it's treated the small business community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Mr. Kelly. I might come back to you if I have time, but I'm going to actually pivot over to Ms. Vandenberg. Ms. Vandenberg, I'm going to make a comment, and I wouldn't mind a comment and have a question, and wouldn't mind if you could respond to both. You've indicated that restaurants right across the country have been the fastest to actually lose jobs. Would it also be the fastest to actually regain jobs if we are going to restart the economy? And you could look just from your charts that it kind of like went up and then went back down again. So you could see that. So that's a comment. I want to know whether you agreed with that. The second question I have is, we've seen that, and I mentioned this a little bit in my earlier question, we've seen in different regions in Canada that reduced public health measures We've seen in different regions in Canada's reduced public health measures do lower case numbers, such as Atlantic or in British Columbia. Can you talk about whether restaurants in regions that allow in-person dining are seeing enough income to run their business without supports?
Thank you so much. Those are fantastic questions. I'm happy to refer the committee to slide number 4, the employment numbers, just for more of an illustrative view. But yes, we were hit first. We were hit hardest. We lost, as I mentioned, more employees in the first 6 weeks than the entire Canadian economy lost in the 08 recession. That also means we stand ready to rebuild those jobs exceptionally quickly. The caveat to that, of course, is the fact that we need to survive long enough to have a place to create those jobs. So for us, it really comes down to the key pillars of the wage and rent subsidy. I don't want to keep beating this dead horse, but taking out debt to pay down more debt to pay down more debt is not sustainable for any cohort or pillar of our economy. So for restaurants in particular, we stand ready, having made significant investments even over the course of this apocalypse while we were shut down, in the health and safety of not just our staff and employees, but Canadians and all guests who come into our establishments. In the regions where we have been fortunate enough to reopen limited capacity indoor dining, it's been a challenge, because for many of our smaller independent operators, limiting your capacity to say 50%, as the percentages seem to be what most governments rely on, that means you've got 2 people at a table, and that's your entire restaurant. And the staff required to turn over the table, the cooks required, the additional labor that we've had to bring in to make sure we can sanitize everything on a regular basis and shifts means that our labor expenses are even higher when we're only able to serve 50% capacity. So for a lot of people, a lot of small business owners and restaurants in particular, it's extremely difficult for them to make the case for themselves to stay open, which is why, again, it comes back down to those subsidies. They are crucial for our survival.
Okay, we will have to move on, and we'll go to a 2.5-minute round with first Miss May, and then Mr. Julian, and then followed by Miss Jansen on a 5-minute round. Miss May, 2.5 minutes.
Oui, merci. Je vais commencer.
Thank you very much. I'm going to begin in French. And a big thank you to my colleague, Mr. Sainte-Marie, for his generosity.
To Mike Cassidy. As you'll probably know, and it's an honor to speak with you, sir. I've watched your valiant work on behalf of Maritime Bus Lines from the other coast, where I'm working with Wilson's Bus Lines. I want to give you the time to explain the Coast to Coast Bus Coalition vision. And parenthetically, before the Transport Committee last week, I put the question to the Deputy Minister of Transportation, what were we going to do to save our ground transportation outside of the inner city buses, but between cities? He said, we're working on it, but we think it's mostly provincial jurisdiction. I think your vision solves that problem. I want to give you the time to explain it.
Mike?
Thank you very much, Member May. It dates back to the summer of 2012, when we had one of the largest transportation companies in the world, Keolis, which owns Orleans in Quebec, which owned Acadian Lines in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick. And they stated in the summer of 2012 that they were going to surrender their motor carrier rights and leave the maritime provinces because they were losing $2 million a year, evidence provided to the Nova Scotia and New Brunswick Board of Public Utilities. At the time, Member May, I did not understand intercity. I had a very good understanding of municipal transit, which is completely different than my motor coach operation. Transit is one of need. Normally in the motor coach business of groups, it's a want. The need is different. We stepped up to the plate and said that our region was going to have inner city transportation. We need it. 2018, when Greyhound made the financial decision to surrender their motor carrier rights, Sudbury, Ontario, West. That was the same feeling that I had in 2012. I spent 2019 providing data to Transport Canada, waiting for their study to be issued, talking about inner city across this country. I was on the media constantly in those early times when Greyhound pulled out of the area in the region, talking about what I call my Trans-Canada Bus Corridor Network. It is so important to have a bus corridor across this country, and then with feeder routes into the actual corridor. Now we had a chance where there are 4 companies, and it's ironic that it's Wilson's on the West Coast and Maritime Bus on the East Coast. We have Pacific Western E-Bus in Alberta, and then we have Casper Transportation in Northern Ontario. 4 companies coming together with the same dream, inner city regionally is important, but we know we have to cross provincial borders. And once we start to cross provincial borders, we need all stakeholders. I do not want to be able to say the province says it's federal, the federal says it's provincial jurisdiction. We're in this together. And when you look at the airlines, you look at Via Rail in the pandemic, most of us in this country would agree that buses have remained and they have been reliable and we have got the work done. And I cherish the day, cost effective, it has to be a cost effective bus corridor with a feeder system that we can have for our country. And we do not have to have large corporations, international corporations telling us that we cannot successfully run bus companies in Canada. We have proven the opposite, Member May, and I still think we can prove that we can make this happen.
Okay, we are going to have to cut it there. We're a little over time. Mr. Jolien, followed by Ms. Jansen. Peter? Okay, oh, there you are. Go ahead, Peter. You're muted.
No, I should be good. I should be good now. Thank you very much. And my question is to Ms. Vandenberg and Mr. Kelly, because you both indicated very passionately and eloquently the importance of providing supports for our small business sector. I see here in New Westminster Burnaby firsthand what the impacts have been on small businesses, on restaurants in our area. They are really struggling to get through this pandemic, and they are very apprehensive about a third wave. Now, the fiscal update that was presented in November has in its summary statement massive cutbacks in government supports over the course of this year. From April 1st to March 31st, basically program expenses are slashed in half. And so my question to both of you is, because you have spoken about providing those supports for a pandemic that will be lasting certainly for another year, how important is it that we put into place supports for the restaurant industry? How important is it that we put supports in place for small businesses so as many of those businesses as possible make it through the pandemic?
Thank you so much. If it's okay, I'll jump in first. I think I don't think I could possibly overstate how desperate the picture is for restaurants across the country, for local communities across the country, and small businesses across the country. These supports are absolutely crucial to. We can't even begin talking about recovery unless we start talking about survival first. And while we are sensitive to the fact that money doesn't actually grow on trees and the government probably can't just keep printing it, the reality is, as one of the other witnesses here today said, a government budget is not the same as a household budget. And it is to our detriment to keep making that analogy, because restaurants are a critical pillar of our culture, of our community, of our local economies. We contributed 4% to the country's total GDP. Without the support of the government in return, we will be bereft the heart and soul of so many communities. I want to make sure Dan has some time to speak to this as well, as I know he's got some thoughts and feelings to share.
Okay, Dan, fairly quickly, if you could.
Look, I'll take a slightly different take with the same endpoint as Lauren. I am really worried about the amount of money that government is racking up in federal debt over the last little while, and I know that we're passing the bill to future generations, including my 12-year-old son. What I can also say, though, is that businesses have been shut down in order to protect society. And while subsidies do not work in ordinary times, they are absolutely necessary right now. These businesses need to be there to help us get out of recovery. If we want a chance of growing the Canadian economy once again and getting back to robust GDP growth in the future, we're going to need every single entrepreneur to keep working and to keep moving. Businesses will fail for sure. There will be many taken out by this, but we can minimize that amount if we get the program supports right, if we extend them until such time as governments can tell Canadians to return to work. The signal to the governments that they can start pulling back from subsidies is when we can say, Canadians, go back to the office. Canadians go back to the restaurant, start dining again, start going to the theater, start taking a trip, including international trips. When that happens, we can slowly start to reduce some of the supports that are there. But if we do that too quickly, these businesses are going to die, and thousands of Canadian jobs will be taken out with them.
Okay, thank you all on that. We will have to go to, we'll divide the time left with the four last questioners, be about 4 minutes apiece, starting with Ms. Jansen and then Ms. Katrakis. Tamara?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It has broken my heart to hear about the many small businesses that have been completely decimated by the continued COVID restrictions and lockdowns. And it's terribly frustrating to see our hardworking job creators and service workers who've been so hard hit and continue to suffer due to the slow procurement and use of rapid tests and vaccines that could have been the road to recovery much earlier. So, Mr. Kelly, I'm hearing from business owners in my riding that if we have to wait until September for the government to finally stop telling Canadians to stay home, they will not be able to hang on. What would the expected loss of businesses and jobs be if vaccinations are slow and we do not fully open up until September?
I'm super worried about the slow rollout of vaccines, especially as Canadian entrepreneurs look at what's happening in some of our major trading partners and the U.S. getting tourism back. The U.S. is allowing those that are vaccinated to return to the U.S. without having going through quarantine requirements. We're going in the opposite direction with further restrictions. Rapid testing, I completely agree, has been a giant missed opportunity for us. Provincial governments have relied almost exclusively on lockdowns as a way of solving this. Most of the Conservative governments have been awful through the whole pandemic on that front. But what I will say is if we can actually get rapid testing, even now, sped up, and Ontario is finally starting to come around to that. Governments, unfortunately, BC government seems out to lunch on that front. But if we can get some of the provinces to pick this up, we think we may be able to have a chance of using that as a tool to guide us through COVID without locking down.
Yes, thank you. And here in BC, we have an NDP government that's still not letting us get out and go. You mentioned in your presentation that your calls with your members have begun to be suicide prevention interventions. How will we even be able to quantify the impact on the mental health of your members?
We've tried to do some of that. I think in my deck today, there are about half of business owners that are saying that this is having a mental health impact on them as a business owner. I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, these calls, we've taken my little not-for-profit association took 78,000 calls from business owners last year to try to provide them with guidance and support. 78,000. And these calls are dark, and business owners are really at their breaking point. And every day, every hour that the program gaps and supports don't get fixed, more business owners are making the decision to hang it up forever. And that's a shame. We're all going to suffer for that.
Absolutely. Now, just if I could ask Ms.
Last question, yeah.
So you mentioned that there is really no evidence to show that COVID protocols which small business owners had put in place were failing, which is incredibly shocking considering how many small businesses are shutting permanently across the country every day. Would you agree that if Canadians continue to be told to stay home until September due to slow vaccine rollouts and lack of rapid tests, that restaurants across the country will continue to go broke?
Absolutely. 100%. It is a terrible and depressing likelihood, but I think it's what we're staring at down the barrel of a gun here. I think a slow vaccine rollout is frustrating and disappointing from a Canadian perspective, but I also think that pinning all of our hopes on a vaccine rollout isn't a strategy for reopening. And I think with the rapid testing, again, a missed opportunity, waiting for vaccines, how do we live in the meantime? What do we tell the countless restaurant operators across the country who are struggling to make ends meet, even when they can open indoor dining, having made these unbelievable investments in protecting the health and safety of their teams, their people, and their guests across the country? It's a growing concern, and my fear is that we don't have any good answers yet.
Okay, thank you all. Turning to Ms. Katrakis, followed by Mr. Fast, and then Mr. Fregaskatis will wrap it up. Annie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the participants in today's meeting. It's heartbreaking to hear this testimony. I know that in my riding in Vimy Laval, there are a lot of small and mid-sized businesses and predominantly restaurants. I am the daughter of a restaurant owner in the past, so I've lived it. I know exactly what the challenges are and what it takes, and it breaks my heart really to see how many small businesses, and particularly in the hospitality industry, are suffering. I would like to question Ms. Dibb, and also to say that in the riding of Vimy, the headquarters of Teamsters Canada is there. I saw the building being built not too far from my office, so it's kind of proud for me to see your building go up in my riding. Ms. Dibb, your president, Mr. Laporte, in response to the fall economic statement, said that the federal government is, and in quotations, dead serious about supporting working and middle-class Canadians, and that continued government spending will be the only way to prevent millions from total ruin. How would you respond to criticism that suggesting from the opposition, suggesting that the federal government should ease its emergency spending? And what specific elements of the FES demonstrate a commitment to ensuring continued support for Canadian workers and families?
Thank you so much, member. Yes, definitely. I think what President Laporte was saying was that our government was taking the right steps right from the beginning to respond as quickly as possible to a crisis situation, and by ensuring that working class, middle class families were the priority, I think, was the right way to approach this pandemic. It doesn't mean that everything was done perfectly right from the get-go, but it does mean that that the government was reacting and responding as quickly as they possibly can. Easing the supports is not the I think is not the responsible response at this time. We're not there yet. I don't believe that easing the supports is going to solve or resolve any of the problems that have been outlined, whether it's on individuals or on the small businesses that are all in crisis at this time. As long as we have a pandemic, as long as people are asked to stay home, as long as businesses and organizations are closed, then people have to survive, and we have a responsibility as a society to take care of one another, and the government is the facilitator of that care. I think if we are going to start to think about a different way of approaching or an evolution in how we're going to be approaching the benefits like the CRB or other benefits under the employment insurance program, for example, I think looking at them from a perspective of how the recovery is going to take shape in the economy is going to be the way to do this. And one way of doing that, and I think is really, really key here, is for sectors that have been devastated and are looking at a whole transformation. It also means that workers in those sectors need to be transformed as well. So how do we move people? How do we transition them from benefits like the CERB into employment that's actually meaningful? And so training, investing in training, and I think the government is looking at ways of doing that through the EI program is really, really key here.
Okay, sorry, Annie, we're going to move on. We'll move on to Mr. Fast, 4 minutes. Ed, followed by Mr. Bragaskatis.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got two questions, and they're both directed at Mr. Kelly. Nice to see you again, Dan. You mentioned that rent support still not doing the job, and you referenced about 26% of small businesses can actually use the program. Have you been able to quantify how many additional businesses will be able to access the rent support or should be able to access the rent support program, and what criteria would have to change to allow them to access this program so they can survive?
Well, first, let me say that the rent support program is a heck of a lot better than the earlier version. The new CERS program is leaps and bounds ahead of the failed CECRA program that was put in place during the beginning of the pandemic. When Minister Freeland took her role, the Deputy Prime Minister took her role in finance, she listened to some of the recommendations that we and others were putting forward and adopted several changes, including putting it on a sliding scale. There needs to be more promotion of the program because there are still, I just found a few today in my emails, business owners that don't know that they've tried the earlier version of the program, they failed, and now have just given up on trying to access it. So that's a portion of the problem. But we've got a letter with about a dozen different gaps that exist in the rent support program. One is that it doesn't apply to newer firms. If you don't have comparison years from 2019 or you're out, you can't access it. Secondly, the big one that I mentioned earlier, that if you can only afford to pay portion of the rent, the money you're getting from the subsidy, you're not allowed to use the subsidy at all, and that needs to be fixed. Third, there's a real gap for businesses that have both a holding company and an operating company. Even the previous CECRA program was more flexible than the current version, and we've been asking the government to make some changes. They did announce a tiny fix, a tiny portion of the fix just yesterday, but there's a much more fundamental one that is necessary. To answer your question about the scope of the program, it's not going to be available for everyone. It's only for those that have had losses. I really like the fact that the government added the lockdown support. That was a smart move of Minister Freeland when she put that in place for those that are shut down again as a part of the second wave. I would be comfortable if we saw 50 to 60% of small firms who have had losses applying for the program. That would put it in range of the CEWS program, for the wage subsidy, and the CEBA loan program. That's where it should be. Unfortunately, it's less than half of that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm running out of time, right?
Do you have a supplementary? Go ahead. You got time for a quick one.
Yes. You also mentioned new businesses were promised they were going to get access to more support programs, and in fact, that was never delivered. How many new businesses have been left behind because of a lack of access to these support programs? And which specific programs, if you can do it very quickly, do you believe they need immediate access to?
Look, we've been begging government to look at the plight of the new business owners. I know they're sensitive to it and they're thinking about it, but for goodness sakes, we're a year into the pandemic and these businesses have had no support at all. I don't have an exact number. There are thousands and thousands that reach out to CFIB asking for help. People that have spent their entire life savings of $500,000 to open a restaurant that has had no income, has been shut down all of last year because of technicalities of their environment. This needs to change. It is desperate. The programs that they need greatest access to, I would say CEBA, getting them a CEBA loan quickly would help a great deal, that $40,000 to $60,000 loan. Secondly, though, we do need to fix the wage and rent subsidy to allow them access to this program, those two programs, because they have been real lifesavers for a whole bunch of businesses.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all, Mr. Fragascatis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses. My apologies, I had to disappear for an hour on a previous commitment, and if my question has already been answered, then I especially apologize. But I had a question for Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly, you talked about in your introduction, which I did hear, the number of businesses that continue to be affected by debt taken on during the pandemic. If I'm not mistaken, the average small business has taken on $170,000 worth of debt. Is that right?
You got it. 73% of businesses have taken on new debt at an average of $170,000.
What are some creative ways forward for those businesses to be relieved of that debt? I just think, post-pandemic, and I know we're not there yet. We're heading there, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
That's an enormous weight for those businesses and for the economy as a whole. So could you love to hear any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the two, like the good news is that the government's put in place the rails of really good programs that could deliver if with some minor modifications. The CEBA loan program, I wasn't a huge fan of it at the beginning, I have to admit. And Minister Morneau, who hated my guts, he did put in place a good program before he left office. The CEBA program, though, does provide, sorry, that program does provide a $40,000 loan, of which $10,000 is forgivable. Minister Freeland expanded that to a $60,000 loan with now $20,000 forgivable. That should be expanded, in my opinion, to $80,000 with 50% of the overall loan forgivable. That would take away some of the debt load that businesses have faced. The other is the good program that Mr. Ingen Freeland put in place, the HASCAP program. Terrible rollout so far, just to let you know. Some of the banks have just now started to offer it. But that HASCAP loan for those that have been highly affected, including the restaurant sector and hospitality, that program provides up to $1 million loan at low interest rates. The idea of providing a forgivable component, let's say a quarter of that loan that would become forgivable upon repayment of the balance, I think sends the right message to the economy. You need to be a going concern in order to get the forgiveness, but it does relieve some of the debt. Businesses can't afford to keep taking this on the chin. And this, remember, is not their fault. We're privatizing societal losses on independent businesses that can't afford them.
Thank you. And I just have a few, not very long remaining. I hear what you're saying on the rent program not being available for new businesses. I wonder if you could speak to that. I think it's a vastly improved rent program. This is on top of all the other programs that have been introduced, which are really sustaining, I think, in so many ways, the economy right now, at least sustaining small businesses. But there's always room for improvement. We can always do better. And love to hear your thoughts again on the importance of getting that rent support to new business owners. Had a situation in my constituency where a restaurant just can't get that support right now. So I'd love to get your thoughts on the record there.
We have a whole separate letter about new businesses and how to fix all of the programs, including rent, to make it available to them. I get that government's concerned about making these programs leak like a sieve and allow fraudsters to create fake businesses in order to access government subsidies. It's a legit concern. I take it seriously. A couple of things. We require them to have a business number before March the 1st for some of the programs. I think the rent programs is September the 1st. So if you didn't have that beforehand, you're ineligible. You have to compare to 2019. If you don't have a similar month in 2019, you're ineligible. So there's a whole host of rules that needs to change. My suggestion is that government allows, say for a restaurant in Ontario, to do the comparison to determine the amount of the subsidy, allow the average for the industry in that province to be used as a calculator to determine the size and scope of the subsidy. So we put all of this in a letter to Minister Freeland. The government, I think, knows what to do. We need to get them to move on this because these businesses have been without any support for the entire pandemic.
We will have to end it there. Listen, Dan, can you send a copy of that letter to the clerk as well, please? And I have a quick question for Mike Cassidy, and then Peter is a quick motion. Mike, in the beginning, you know where I live and I'm riding a Malpeque here, and I have a business just up the rural road here that brings in about 300,000 a year just from the cruise ships. So I see your buses, your charter buses going by there. You said in the beginning that the charter buses will have been idle pretty well 2 years. I farm. I know what it's like when you leave a piece of equipment idle. You just don't hop in and start it up. And you said in your remarks, you need to be ready, willing, and able to roll those buses when they need to run. How are you going to do that, and what do you need to do to have them in shape to go? What does the government need to be doing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In our industry, if you have lot rot or if you sit with the motor vehicle, and especially after 2 years, we're estimating that it's going to be $20,000 to $25,000 per motor coach to get that coach up, willing, and able to go to work in 2022. And Mr. Chair, when I mentioned, is there a loan that could be put in place per motor coach? That amount of money could help us get our coaches ready, willing, and able. And no different when we talk about HASCAP and a forgivable portion, or $80,000, forgivable $40,000 for small businesses. It's the same concept in the motor coach business. If we bring our buses to the dock, if the person up the road that depends on $300,000 for cruise ship arrivals, we bring our buses to the dock in 2022, 2023, 2024, have a portion or all of the loan forgivable. But it's just not your business up the road, Mr. Chair. We have hotels, we have small motels that are up for sale now, because our motor coaches are not stopping at their doors, and people on our motor coaches are not paying for the rooms. They're not getting their meals. It's just, as we all know, a trickle-down effect, but it's dangerous, very dangerous.
Okay. I'll release the witnesses before we quickly go to Peter's motion. All the witnesses, thank you. These are extremely difficult times, we know that, but on the positive side, there's one thing that always amazes me is the ideas that come forward from the total community. Good ideas here today from the unions, from operators, from businesses, etc. There's tremendous ideas out there, and we welcome them at this committee, and we welcome the constructive criticism as well. And we try to work across party lines to see what we can do. So thank you very much for your presentations. We understand the heartfelt concern in your area. So thank you again to the witnesses. Peter, you had a quick statement.
Yes, well, just a point of order, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much for that, and thanks for our terrific witnesses. They were amazing today, and we learned a lot. For subsequent weeks, as we talked about in the motion I presented a couple of weeks ago to start this study, we talked about the parties actually providing their witnesses and scheduling their witnesses. So I just want to be clear that that's the intent, that we would be submitting a list for the next week or the week after. Next week, I understand, is more targeted sessions, but for the following week, of course, ensuring that we get the witnesses that we want to have up. And I just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, that's the next week is tied up with law clerk and C208, and there'll probably be another session on C208 after that in the following week, Larry Maguire's bill. Then we will have to see what comes at us from Parliament, but our intent certainly is to keep going with witnesses on COVID-19 this session today. You can see the good ideas that are coming forward. I think we can be helpful to everyone in terms of providing that information up the line as well. So yes, that's the intent. We already have, I would say, from the parties, I'd have to ask the clerk for sure, but we must have 40 or 50 witnesses already on those lists. So we'll have to sit down as a steering committee and do some priorities, I'd suggest, after we get through next week. Okay, with that, thanks all. Meeting adjourned. Take care.
Thank you.
And thanks, Gabriel.